My father wrote in his will that everything goes to the one who remembers the truth, and that's when my brother cracked. The room went silent. Not the kind of silence where people shift uncomfortably or cough to break the tension. No. This was the kind of silence that feels like gravity itself just dropped a few extra pounds on your chest. It was just me, my brother Jason, and the family lawyer, Mr. Fenwick. And that line, that cursed, cryptic line, had just ripped open the past like a scab that never healed. Jason didn't even blink at first. He just stared at the floor like the words hadn't registered. But I saw the twitch in his jaw, the way his fingers curled into his knees. He remembered something. And whatever it was, it scared the hell out of him. I should back up. My name's Eric. I'm 39, oldest son of Raymond Holt, a man who built his fortune in construction, who could crush concrete with his hands and crush your ego with a single glance. He wasn't a warm man. Hell, he wasn't even kind. But he was deliberate, intentional. He didn't waste words. So when he wrote that line into his will, everything goes to the one who remembers the truth, he knew exactly what he was doing. Dad died 3 weeks ago. Heart failure. Quiet. Peaceful. Unlike anything he was in life. He passed in the middle of the night in his study, surrounded by blueprints, invoices, and a half-empty glass of scotch. Jason found him. I hadn't even known he was in town. He and Dad hadn't spoken in over 5 years, not since the blowout over Mom's jewelry and the missing family account funds. Jason had always been the golden boy until he wasn't. Until the lies caught up. Until the loan turned into something else entirely. After that, it was like Dad erased him. Photos removed. Name never spoken. That kind of cold. I stayed close. Maybe too close. I handled Dad's appointments, his prescriptions, his accounts. I was the one he trusted. Or so I thought. And then the will. That damn line. Not a division of assets. Not a trust split. Just that single, loaded phrase, to the one who remembers the truth, I leave it all. What truth? I'd asked Fenwick. The lawyer had sighed, adjusted his glasses, and said something that pissed me off even more. Your father believed clarity comes from discomfort. He wanted the answer to reveal itself. Jason had laughed at that. A bitter, joyless laugh that sounded more like a warning than amusement. Now we sat there, both pretending we didn't know what it meant. But Jason knew. I could see it in him. The way he wouldn't meet my eyes. The way he kept rubbing the inside of his left wrist like something was etched into the skin. I'm not playing games, I said, my voice low. If you know what this is about. Don't, Jason cut in. Don't act like you're the victim here. Victim? I felt my face go hot. I'd spent the last 5 years cleaning up the mess he made. Taking care of Dad while he vanished into whatever version of his life made it easier to forget ours. And now he was going to act like I was hiding something? Fenwick raised a hand. Perhaps some time to reflect. No, I said. He's stalling. Jason stood abruptly. The chair scraped back loud against the hardwood. He stared at me, jaw tight, eyes hard. You really don't remember, do you? He said. I stood too. Remember what, Jason? That you forged Mom's signature to drain the Merrill Lynch account? That you took her necklace and pawned it when she was in hospice? His face darkened. I didn't pawn it. Then where is it? She gave it to me. Liar. That necklace, a small sapphire pendant, had been our mother's favorite. She used to call it her anchor. She wore it even when she was too weak to eat. Jason had shown up the day before she died, stayed for 10 minutes, and it disappeared. Dad never forgave him. And now here he was, hands trembling slightly, breathing like he'd just run 10 blocks, telling me she gave it to him. What's the truth, Jason? I asked. His mouth opened, then closed. And then, something cracked. He sank back into the chair like someone had yanked the bones from his legs. You don't want to know, he whispered. You think you do, but you don't. Fenwick sat back in his chair, watching us like a man who's seen too many families fall apart over sentences written in ink. Try me, I said, stepping forward. My pulse was hammering in my ears now. Whatever it is, spit it out. Jason looked up at me, eyes hollow. Then he said something I'll never forget. Because if you remember what happened that night, really remember, then you already know why Dad couldn't pick you. My mouth went dry. What night? Jason didn't answer. He just leaned back, reached into his coat pocket, and pulled out a small velvet pouch. He dropped it on the table. The sound it made, soft, final, felt heavier than any slap. I reached out slowly and opened it. Inside was Mom's pendant. Still cold. Still perfect. Still shining like it remembered something I didn't. And that's when the memory started to claw its way back. I hadn't thought about that night in years, not clearly. Not like this. But the moment I held Mom's pendant in my hand, something flickered. A fragment. A sound. A smell. Lavender and blood. Jason just sat there, watching me. His eyes didn't blink. He didn't smirk. He looked like he was watching a man walk toward a cliff and wondering if I'd see the edge before I fell. "You remember it," he said quietly. "I don't know what you're talking about," I snapped, too quickly. But I was lying. Not fully, not yet, but enough to feel that ripple of panic just beneath the surface. Because the truth is, I'd buried that night. Pushed it so deep I convinced myself it was just a dream. A drunken hallucination. But it wasn't. It was real. The year was 1999. I was 15. Jason was 13. And Mom, she was still alive. Barely. The cancer had already taken her hair, her weight, her strength. But she still tried to be there. She still tucked us in. Still made Jason's favorite pasta even when she could barely hold the spoon. She called us her bookends, said we held the house together. That night, I'd woken up to shouting. Not unusual. Dad had a temper, and Mom was dying loudly, every part of her decay wrapped in guilt and silence and the weight of a man who didn't know how to lose. But this shouting was different. Panicked. Urgent. I remember padding down the hall barefoot. I remember the faint light under their bedroom door. I remember the sound of something breaking. Glass. Then the door opened, and Jason slipped out, his face pale, hands shaking, a thin line of red down his right forearm. "Go back to bed," he whispered. His eyes were wide, wild. "You didn't see anything." I remember him pushing me, not hard, just enough. Enough to move me down the hall. Away. I remember feeling like I was in a dream. But then I woke up the next morning, and Mom was gone. Not dead. Gone. The hospice nurse said she passed in the night. But not in her bed. She was found in the backyard, curled under the magnolia tree, barefoot, in her nightgown, lips blue. Dad said she must have gotten confused. That she wandered out and collapsed. But something always felt off about that. Why didn't she call for help? Why was her necklace gone? Why did Jason have a cut on his arm that no one explained? "Say it," Jason said now, dragging me back to the present. "You remember that night. The glass. The yelling. The blood." I dropped the pendant like it burned me. "No," I said. "That doesn't mean anything. That could have been anything." "Eric," Jason's voice cracked. "He lied to us. He lied to both of us." "Then why do you write the will that way?" I shot back. "Why not just tell the truth? Why not say your name or mine?" Jason looked at the floor. "Because he was a coward." I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because he wasn't wrong. Dad wasn't the kind of man who apologized. He was the kind of man who had rot under polished floors and told you to walk barefoot. And maybe this was his final game, one last punishment, one final test of who could survive the truth. "I want to know," I said finally. My voice was shaking. "I want to know what really happened that night." Jason looked up. His face was pale, but his eyes were clear. "Then meet me tomorrow. Mom's tree. Noon. The magnolia?" He nodded. "I'll bring the photo." I froze. What photo? But Jason didn't answer. He stood, slid the pendant back into the pouch, and walked out of the lawyer's office like he hadn't just torn open the past. I stood there, alone with Fenwick, my ears ringing. "What did he mean?" I asked. "What photo?" Fenwick looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. "Your father left a sealed envelope with my office. It's marked for delivery after the inheritance is resolved. So it's useless until we solve the riddle." He gave me a tight nod. "Your father had unconventional views on legacy." I laughed, sharp, bitter. "You mean he enjoyed screwing with us from the grave?" Fenwick didn't respond. Outside, it had started to rain. The kind of slow, steady drizzle that makes everything look softer than it feels. As I walked to my car, I kept thinking about that tree. About the dirt under her fingernails. About the pendant that vanished and reappeared like a ghost. And about what Jason would say tomorrow. I wasn't sure I was ready for it. But I knew one thing. Whatever that truth was, it was coming for us. The tree looked smaller now. It used to feel enormous, towering, almost sacred. The magnolia in the backyard was Mom's favorite place. She used to sit under it with a worn-out novel, one leg tucked under her, the other stretched toward the roots like she belonged to the earth. After her death, no one went near it. Not really. Dad mowed around it. Jason never even looked in its direction. But I came back the day after the will reading, just like Jason said. Noon sharp. He wasn't there yet. The sky was overcast, the kind of dull gray that matched the ache in my chest. I hadn't slept. Barely eaten. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the pendant, the blood on Jason's wrist, the nurse whispering to Dad in the hall that morning like they were trading state secrets. I walked around the tree slowly. The bark was cracked near the base. There was still the faint outline of the swing Jason and I used to fight over. One of the ropes had snapped the summer before Mom got sick. She'd laughed when we both blamed each other. That was the last time we all laughed together. It felt like a different life. I heard the gate creak. Jason. He looked older than I remembered. Or maybe just tired in a way I hadn't noticed before. His jacket was zipped up to his throat, and in his hand was a weathered manila envelope. "You came," he said, walking toward me. I said I would. He nodded, then looked at the tree. "She died here." I swallowed. "I remember." "No. You think you remember," he said, and pulled out the photo. He handed it to me wordlessly. At first, it looked like nothing. A Polaroid, slightly curled at the corners. Faded, like it had been buried in a drawer for decades. But then I looked closer. The image was taken at night. The flash was harsh, catching the white of Mom's gown like a ghost. She was lying beneath the magnolia, eyes open, mouth parted slightly. Not peaceful, not even surprised. Just still. But that wasn't what made me choke. It was the person standing behind her. Half in frame, barely visible. Me. 15-year-old me. Standing there in the dark. Staring down at her. Holding something in my hand. A glass. Or maybe a bottle. My mouth went dry. "No," I whispered. This can't be real." Jason's voice was tight. "I found it in Dad's desk 2 weeks ago, hidden behind the panel in the drawer. You know the one." I did. The secret compartment. The one he thought we didn't know about. He used to stash cash there. And documents. And now, apparently, evidence. Why would he keep this? I asked. Why not destroy it? "Because Dad didn't destroy things," Jason said. "He collected them. Stored them. Used them." I kept staring at the photo. "I don't remember this," I said. Jason sat down under the tree, right where Mom had lain. "You'd had a fight with her that night." "No, you did. You were mad she canceled your trip. You called her selfish. You slammed the door." "I was 15, Jason. You grabbed the scotch bottle from Dad's office. You were angry. You drank. And you came outside." "How do you know this?" "Because I followed you," he said. "I heard the door slam. I watched from the hallway. I saw you stumble into the yard, yelling at no one. And then I saw her. She was already out here. She'd followed you, probably trying to calm you down." I shook my head. "No, that doesn't make sense." She grabbed your arm. You flinched. The bottle cracked against her collarbone. Not hard, but she fell. I blinked hard. "You're lying." "Why would I lie now?" The photo trembled in my hand. "You said she gave you the necklace." "She did," he said. "After she fell. She was still awake. Bleeding. Scared. She looked up at me and said, 'Don't blame him. He didn't mean it.'" Silence. Then he added, "She put the pendant in my hand and said, 'He'll forget. You'll remember.'" I felt like the air was being sucked out of my lungs. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" I whispered. "Because you were a kid. And Dad needed someone to protect. You were the heir. The clean one. The good son. And you were what?" "The one who remembered," he said bitterly. "The one who always knew." I sank down beside him. The grass was wet. "All these years," I said. "You carried this." He nodded. "And now it's yours." "I don't want it." He looked at me, and there was no anger in his face anymore. Just grief. "It doesn't matter what we want. Dad made sure of that." I stared at the photo one more time. My face in that frozen moment. Eyes wide. Expression unreadable. And the truth hit me like a wave I'd been outrunning for decades. I did remember. Just enough. The glass. Her voice. The crack. And the silence that followed. I handed the photo back to Jason. "I think you should be the one to get it," I said. "The inheritance?" I nodded. "All of it." He looked stunned. "You're the one who remembered." Jason shook his head slowly. "No, Eric," he said. "We both did. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my apartment with the photo on the table, the pendant next to it, and a whiskey glass in my hand I couldn't bring myself to drink from. I just kept staring. At her face. At mine. At the shape of that night we'd both buried. We both remembered. Jason was right. But memory's a funny thing. It's not just what you recall. It's what you carry. And Jason had been carrying all of it, alone, for decades. My guilt, his silence, our father's cold control binding it all like mortar. I kept replaying her final words in my head, not because I heard them, But because Jason swore she said them, he didn't mean it. She protected me. In her last breath, she chose mercy. And I had forgotten her. That truth, it swallowed me. By sunrise, I knew what I had to do. I called Fenwick. Told him I needed to reopen the will. Not contest it, clarify it. He sounded hesitant, like he was already bracing for a war between brothers. It's not a dispute, I said. It's a correction. He agreed to meet us both that afternoon. Jason showed up 20 minutes early. I was already there. He looked surprised when he saw the documents in my hands. What's this? I slid them across the table. A statement, I said, that I renounce any claim to Dad's estate. That the entire inheritance should go to you. Jason stared at me. I don't want your pity. It's not pity, I said. It's penance. He looked down at the paper. You sure about this? I nodded. You were the one Dad punished. You remembered what I couldn't. You carried what I didn't even know I dropped. He was silent for a long time. Then he said, I didn't come back for money, Eric. Then take it anyway, I said. Build something better with it. Fenwick cleared his throat. There's one more thing. He pulled a sealed envelope from his case. Your father left this for whoever inherited. It's dated 5 years ago. Jason reached for it, then hesitated. You open it, he said to me. I took it. Broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed. It read, You were both there. Only one of you remembered. But remembering isn't enough. Forgiveness is the true inheritance. If you're reading this, then maybe one of you finally figured that out. Jason let out a breath, shaky and sharp. I folded the letter slowly, then looked at him. I don't know if I've earned forgiveness, I said. From you. From her. From myself. He nodded. Me either. And that was the moment, not loud, not dramatic, when something shifted between us. Not a full repair. Not a reunion. But a crack of light. A beginning. Later that week, I helped Jason move into the old house. He wasn't sure he wanted to stay, but he said something about gutting it, making it his own. Said maybe that's how you deal with ghosts, not by avoiding them, but by changing the rooms they live in. Before I left that night, I stood under the magnolia again. The leaves rustled gently above me. I closed my eyes and remembered the way she used to hum under this tree. That low, sweet melody. The one she never finished. I whispered to the silence, I remember now. And for the first time in my life, I believe she heard me. The hardest part wasn't remembering. It was living with what I remembered. Even after Jason and I signed the papers, even after I gave up my claim and handed him the entire estate, I still woke up every night at 3 a.m. with the image of that photo in my head, me standing over Mom, bottle in hand. Like a shadow someone forgot to erase. I thought doing the right thing would feel like relief. But it didn't. Not right away. It felt like standing naked in a storm, vulnerable, cold, exposed. Jason didn't gloat. He didn't flex the inheritance or throw it in my face. If anything, he got quieter, more careful with his words. Like he was still afraid I might break again. But I didn't break. Not yet. One night, about a week after everything settled, he called. You should come over, he said. I found something else. My stomach dropped. Found what? In the crawl space. Under Dad's study. I drove over. The house looked different now. The lights were warmer, the air less heavy. Jason had already ripped down some of the dark drapes Dad always insisted on, opened up the living room, boxed up the display case of war medals and hunting trophies. Figured it was time the place stopped worshiping him, Jason had said. Now, he led me to the back hallway, the part of the house that always gave me chills. The crawl space was behind a small panel in the floor, beneath the old woven rug Mom hated. Jason had already pulled it open. Inside was a metal box. Dusty. Locked. But Jason had already cracked the latch. He handed it to me. You open it. I flipped it open slowly. Inside were 3 things. A folded letter in Mom's handwriting. A VHS tape, unmarked. A small, yellowed envelope with my name on it. My hands trembled. Jason leaned against the wall, watching me like he already knew what was inside. I opened the envelope. It was a photo, not of her death, of her life. Me and her, side by side under the magnolia tree. I was maybe 10. She was healthy, radiant, laughing at something I'd said. One hand on my shoulder. On the back, she'd written, When you remember the truth, remember this too. I choked back something sharp in my throat. Jason picked up the VHS tape. There's an old player in Dad's den. I checked. Still works. We watched it in silence. It was home footage, but not the kind I remembered. Not staged birthdays or forced Christmas dinners. This was private. The date on the screen was a week before she died. The camera wobbled, focused, then cleared. Mom was sitting on the edge of her bed. Alone. Pale. Fragile. But sharp as ever. I don't know if anyone will see this, she said into the lens. But I need to say it. In case I can't later. She took a shaky breath. I'm scared. Not of dying. Of what this is doing to my boys. Eric. He's angry. He hides it. But I see it. Jason. He's scared. And he hides that. Ray won't talk to them. He thinks silence is strength. She looked down, then back up. I'm trying to hold everyone together, but I can feel the seams ripping. And when I go, I'm afraid they'll break. She reached forward and adjusted the camera. If you're watching this, it means I'm already gone. And maybe something happened. Maybe someone's blaming themselves. She paused. Don't. I felt the tears sting before they fell. Eric, if it was you watching. I know your heart. You were never the storm. You were the one holding the umbrella in the wind, pretending not to be soaked. And Jason, you were the quiet watcher. The soul of this family. You both deserve better than what we gave you. Then her voice broke. I know how Dad is. I know he won't talk about any of this. And he'll leave a mess behind. That's his way. But my wish, my final wish, is that you don't let the worst of him become the last of you. She smiled. Weak, but real. Remember the truth. But don't forget the love. Then the tape ended. The screen went ecstatic. Jason turned it off. Neither of us spoke. Because what do you say when a ghost gives you more grace than you ever gave yourself? I walked outside. The magnolia tree was just starting to bloom. The petals were soft, pale pink, fragile. I touched one. Hi, Mom, I whispered. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel haunted. I felt held. It started with a knock. Not the kind you ignore. The kind that echoes too long. Too slow. Heavy with hesitation. Jason and I had just finished dinner, something simple, grilled chicken and potatoes, eaten quietly on the back porch while the sun melted into the trees behind the house. There hadn't been much talking since the tape. We were both carrying pieces of it in our chests like jagged glass wrapped in gauze. Fragile. Healing. The knock came just as I was pouring the last of the wine. Jason opened the front door. Then I heard his voice change lower, clipped. You shouldn't be here. I stood and walked around the corner. It was him. Dad's brother. Uncle Gordon. I hadn't seen him in almost 10 years. Last time was at the funeral for Dad's mother, a woman who lived to 94 and never once said, I love you, to anyone. Gordon looked the same. Pressed shirt, gold watch, eyes like polished stone. Eric, he said, nodding. What do you want? I asked. He smiled, a tight, politician's smile. Just came to pay respects. Jason crossed his arms. You didn't come to Dad's funeral. I was out of the country. Convenient. Gordon stepped inside like he'd been invited. I heard about the inheritance, he said, glancing around the house. Ray left everything to the one who remembers the truth. Always loved his riddles. Jason stayed between him and the hallway. What's your angle? No angle, Gordon said. Just thought maybe it was time we talked about. Unfinished business. I felt my stomach tighten. What business? Gordon looked at me, then back at Jason. You boys really think you know the whole story? Jason's voice dropped. We know enough. Gordon stepped closer. You know what happened that night with your mother? I blinked. Jason went still. Gordon let out a dry laugh. You think she wandered out here because she was confused? Or that it was an accident? Jason's voice was sharp now. You'd better tread carefully. He held up a hand. Easy. I'm not accusing anyone. I'm saying, maybe there was more going on than you knew. I stepped forward. Spit it out, Gordon. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw it. The crack behind his eyes. Something older. Something rotten. I came by that night. Late. After a call from Ray. Jason stiffened. He was drunk, Gordon said. Said she was out of control. Said he didn't know what to do with her anymore. I told him to walk it off. That he was being dramatic. But he insisted. I felt my breath catch. You were here. I said. He nodded. I parked out front. Walked in through the back gate. Found your mom sitting right there, under the tree. Barefoot. She was crying. Jason whispered, no. She looked up at me, Gordon said, his voice soft now, and she said, if anything happens to me, tell the boys the truth. What truth? I demanded. Gordon didn't answer right away. Then, slowly, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small cassette tape, the kind people used to record voice memos on in the 90s. She gave me this, he said. Begged me to keep it safe. Said Ray would destroy it if he found out. He placed it on the table between us. I forgot about it. Lost track of it for years. Found it last month, buried in a box in my garage. Jason was already pulling out an old tape player Dad kept in the den. Within minutes, we were all standing around it like kids at a seance. Gordon pressed play. And there it was. Her voice. Soft. Worn. But clear. If someone is listening to this, it means I didn't get to say everything I needed to. And I need to talk about Ray. She took a shaky breath. He's not well. He hasn't been for a long time. The drinking. The anger. The way he isolates us. It's gotten worse. I could barely breathe. I don't know what he'll do when things get bad, she said. But I need you to protect the boys. I need someone to remember that they were good. That Eric was hurting and didn't know how to say it. That Jason saw too much too soon. And that none of what's happening is their fault. Jason's jaw clenched. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger, she said. I'm sorry I stayed this long. I wanted to believe love could fix him. But I know better now. The tape clicked. Then silence. No one moved. Gordon sat back, eyes distant. I should have given this to you a long time ago. Jason walked out of the room. I followed. He was in the backyard, facing the tree, fists clenched at his sides. She knew, he said. She knew what was coming. I stood beside him. She still tried to protect us. He turned toward me, eyes blazing with a grief I couldn't name. What kind of man hides that? Makes us live with that guilt. Our father, I said. Jason nodded. Then whispered, not anymore. The next day, I dug through every file box in Dad's old office like I was searching for oxygen. Jason watched from the doorway, arms crossed, silent. Neither of us had slept. That tape had rewired something inside us. We didn't say it aloud, but we both knew. Our mother had left a trail. A breadcrumb path through hell. And Dad had tried to burn every piece of it. I found a locked drawer beneath the desk. Not the main drawers, a hidden one, disguised as paneling beneath the cabinet lip. I'd only seen him open it once when I was 13, and he caught me snooping. Back then, I thought it was where he hid his will or maybe old letters. But now? Jason handed me a flathead screwdriver. Took 5 minutes to pop it. Inside was a worn leather journal, a key, and another envelope, this one addressed not to me, not to Jason, but to her. Our mom. I pulled it out slowly. The seal was still intact. Jason took a step closer. Do we read it? I nodded. My hands were shaking as I opened it. It was short. You said I'd never say it. But I will, even if you're not here to hear it. You were right. I was a coward. I hated the way you made me feel seen. Vulnerable. Weak. But you were the only one who ever made me want to be better. And I failed. I failed you. I failed the boys. I locked you out and let the fear win. If they ever find this, I hope they know it wasn't their fault. I made the choices. I let the darkness in. And by the time I realized what it cost me, it was too late. I stared at it. Jason whispered, Is that an apology? I nodded once. But it didn't land like forgiveness. It landed like ashes. Jason turned to the journal. What's in that? I opened the cover. Inside were dates, names, ledger entries, hidden payments to a trust in the Caymans, transfers between dummy corporations, donations to political campaigns, names we recognized from news stories and scandals. It was his secrets, his whole playbook. He kept everything, Jason said. Leverage, I muttered. Blackmail. Control. Jason pointed to a page marked with a red tab. I turned to it, and that's when I saw my name, and his. Next to each, a paragraph of notes. Observations. Psychological evaluations, written like a goddamn scientist observing lab rats. Eric, reactive under pressure. Desperate for approval. Leans toward responsibility out of guilt. Easy to control through praise and withdrawal. Jason, high emotional sensitivity. Withdraws under stress. Prone to outbursts if cornered. Requires distance to maintain loyalty. I felt sick. Jason stared at the page like it was poison. He studied us. I nodded. We were his legacy project. Jason snapped the journal shut. Not anymore. He walked out of the room, grabbed a metal bucket from the garage, and brought it to the backyard. Without a word, he dumped the journal in and lit a match. We watched it burn. Every page, every lie, curling into smoke and heat and freedom. Later, Jason stood beside me, watching the last flame die. I don't want the house, he said. What? I thought I did. I thought fixing it would fix me. But this place, he looked around. It's a mausoleum. It doesn't belong to us anymore. I nodded slowly. Then what do? We sell it. Donate the money. To what? He looked at me. To whatever she would have wanted. That night, we walked the halls one last time. We found the blanket she used to keep in the dim, soft, hand-knit, floral pattern. Jason took it. I found a photo of all four of us, before things went bad. I didn't take it out of nostalgia. I took it to remind myself of the moment things could have gone differently. By morning, we'd packed what mattered. The rest? We left behind. Because sometimes healing doesn't come from reclaiming the past. Sometimes it comes from walking away from it with your head high and your heart broken, but open. It took exactly 4 weeks to empty the house. Not just of furniture and clothes, but of him. Every trace of our father. Every ghost still wearing his face. Jason hired a clean-out crew for the heavy lifting, but we handled the attic ourselves. It felt personal. Sacred in a way neither of us could explain. There were letters from women we never knew existed. Guns we didn't know he owned. Files with our names and social security numbers, alongside strange receipts and insurance policies from banks we'd never used. He wasn't just a complicated man. He was a man built on compartments. Secrets stacked like bricks. Walls upon walls. And behind each, another room we never knew existed. By the last night, the house was quiet. Hollow. Jason and I stood in the living room, just us. The echo of memories we no longer feared, in 2 chairs, the only things we hadn't moved yet. He looked at me across the space. "Do you think he ever really loved us?" he asked. It was the kind of question that doesn't want an answer. But he asked it anyway. I sat down slowly, looked at the hardwood floor. The spot where I once spilled juice and got screamed at for an hour. The place where Jason broke his arm falling off the piano bench while trying to make Mom laugh. The corner where Dad used to stand silently when he was disappointed, which was always. I exhaled. "I think he loved control," I said. "And I think he loved the idea of what we were supposed to become." Jason nodded. "But us?" I added. "As people? I don't know if he ever saw us clearly enough to love us." Silence settled between us. Jason looked out the window. "Do you think he knew how much damage he did?" "I think he knew," I said. "I just don't think he cared." Jason turned to me. "I care," he said. I blinked. "I care what we do next," he continued. "How we carry this. How we don't become him." I stood and walked toward him. "You won't." He looked me dead in the eye. "We won't," he corrected. That hit me harder than I expected. We locked the front door that night for the last time. 2 months later, the house sold to a young couple with a baby on the way. They asked no questions about the history. Just liked the bones. Said the tree out back was their favorite part. Said it felt like a memory they hadn't made yet. We didn't tell them anything. We just left a small box in the attic with a note. "If you find this, know that this house held both joy and pain. We let it go to start again. We hope you fill it with more of the first and less of the second." Signed, Eric and Jason. After the sale, Jason split the money between a women's shelter, the same one Mom had once donated to quietly, and a grant fund for kids with parents in addiction recovery. He didn't even hesitate. I watched him write those checks with a kind of peace I hadn't seen on his face since we were kids. And me? I moved. Small place. Quiet town. Got a dog. Started volunteering. Nothing dramatic. Just small steps. Gentle ones. And on the wall by my desk, I keep the photo Mom left me, the one of her laughing under the magnolia. A reminder that even in darkness, there was light. Even in pain, there was someone who loved us enough to leave behind truth. Not for revenge. Not to wound. But to free us. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I talk to her. Out loud. Like a madman. But I swear, in those moments, I hear the leaves rustle like a whisper. I feel the weight lift. Just a little. I feel seen. She gave us that. Not Dad. Her. So when people ask how I finally came to peace with everything, I tell them the truth. It started with a riddle. It ended with a memory. And somewhere in between, 2 broken brothers remembered who their mother taught them to be. You'd think closure comes in a single moment, a letter, a confession, a memory sliding into place like the final puzzle piece. But that's not how it happens. Closure comes in layers. In the way your body starts relaxing in spaces that used to make you flinch. In the way your voice stops cracking when you say her name. In the silence after you've said everything you needed to say, and nothing else rushes in to fill it. That's where I found myself 6 months later. Jason and I weren't living close anymore, but we were closer than we'd ever been. He bought a small house in Oregon, near the coast. Said he liked the wind there. Said it reminded him of Mom's voice when she was healthy, singing to the radio while folding laundry. I visited once a month. We never talked about Dad unless it was a joke. And even those were rare. One day, I got a call from Fenwick, the lawyer. "I've got something odd," he said. It's another letter." I didn't respond right away. He added, "It's not from your father. It's from your mother." My throat went dry. "From Mom." He cleared his throat. "She left it with me years ago. Said to only deliver it once the estate was settled and you and Jason had found your footing." Her exact words. I drove to the office that same day. Fenwick handed me a cream-colored envelope. It had both our names on it, mine and Jason's, written in her handwriting, still elegant, still unmistakable. Jason flew in the next day. We sat on my porch, 2 mugs of coffee between us, and I slid the letter onto the table. "You ready?" I asked. He nodded. I opened it. She'd dated it 2 weeks before she died. "My beautiful boys, I hope you are reading this together. I asked Mr. Fenwick to wait until time did its work, until you remembered that you were not each other's enemy, but each other's home. I want to tell you something I never had the courage to say when I was alive. I see you. Eric, I saw how hard you tried to carry everything. You wore responsibility like armor, but I always worried it was eating you alive. Jason, I saw your heart breaking every time someone raised their voice. You were my quiet strength. My echo. I stayed longer than I should have. I know that now. I thought I could shield you both from the storm. I was wrong. But I want you to know, you were always the best part of me. I hope you've forgiven me for not being stronger. I hope you've forgiven each other. And most of all, I hope you've remembered to laugh, to cry, to live. Don't let what happened define you. Let how you chose to rise after be the story you tell. All my love, Mom." Jason didn't say anything for a long time. He just reached out and placed his hand over mine. Not like a brother, not like a man who'd once stood over a grave and blamed me, but like family, real family. "You know what we should do?" he said quietly. "What?" He smiled. "Start something. In her name." I blinked. "Like a scholarship?" He shook his head. "Bigger. A home. A place for people who've lived through hell and don't know how to breathe again." I felt my throat close. "You serious?" He nodded. "We've got the money, the name, the story. Let's use it." We did. 1 year later, the Magnolia House opened its doors. A place for women rebuilding their lives. For kids who saw too much. For men learning how to be gentle again. Every room has a photo of her. Not posed, not polished. Just her, under the tree, laughing, head tilted to the sun. And every person who walks through that door sees the plaque above the entrance. You are not your pain. You are what you do with it. We tell them the truth if they ask. Not for pity, not for drama, but because truth, when shared, becomes something else entirely. Not a wound, but a bridge, a home, a beginning. I visit the tree once a year now. Not the original one. That house belongs to another family, another story. A couple with twins, I think. They added a new swing to the magnolia. Rebuilt the garden Mom once tried to keep alive with trembling hands and stubborn hope. I don't begrudge them that. No, the tree I visit now is ours. Planted in the courtyard of Magnolia House. Smaller, younger, but thriving. Jason and I had the roots blessed the day we opened the center. Silly, maybe, we're not religious. But it felt right. Like giving her back something we'd all been robbed of. Peace. The day I visit, I bring a chair, an old notebook, and sometimes a fresh pendant to leave at the base. We started a tradition. Every woman who finishes the full healing program gets one. A pendant like Mom's. Not real sapphire, but close enough. A symbol. A token. A reminder that what was taken doesn't get to define what's left. Today it's quiet. Birdsong. Wind. The faint sounds of laughter echoing from inside the house. Someone just finished a group session. I smile. Jason's upstairs, running a workshop on resilience. He's become something else entirely since we burned Dad's journal. Not just calmer, anchored. He doesn't flinch when people cry anymore. He listens like it matters. Because now it does. I open my notebook and start writing. Not a speech. Not a confession. A letter. To her. "Hi, Mom. I know it's been a while. And I know you probably hear more from Jason. He talks to the tree like it answers back. But I wanted to tell you. I get it now. I get why you stayed as long as you did. Why you left clues instead of confrontations. Why you never gave us the whole story, just enough to find it ourselves. You didn't want us to inherit pain. You wanted us to outgrow it. And we did. Eventually. The scars are still there. But they're soft now. And somehow, you gave us everything we needed to turn them into maps." A shadow crosses over me. Jason, He hands me a coffee, still hot. You writing to her again? He asks. I nod. It helps. He sits beside me. She'd be proud, he says. Of this place. Of you. You too, I say. We sit in silence for a while. Then I add one final line to the letter. Thank you for making the truth something we could live with, not run from. I fold the page, slide it into the metal box we keep at the base of the tree, and press it down among dozens of others. Hundreds now, all from people like us. People who've known silence too long and finally found a place to speak. I look up at the branches above. They're stronger this year. Thicker. Reaching. I smile and say it aloud, because now I finally can. We remember, Mom. We remember everything. And for the first time since I was 15 years old, I'm not afraid of the truth anymore.